live on the YouTube as well.
Okay, cool.
And we're live.
Awesome. So, welcome. Thanks to everyone for joining us. This is the Ultimate Comics virtual Q&A for Salt Magic. The brand new graphic novel just came out this week, and we are chatting with the creators, Hope Larson and Rebecca Mock. You might know them from Compass South, Knife's Edge, and a whole host of incredible graphic novels, but we're going to be talking about Salt Magic tonight. I was blown away by this. I guess it was just so good. And it's not like anything I've read recently. I read a lot of middle grade YA stuff just for work. And
just for work,
this is just
right?
so different. That's just for work. I guess if you could both talk to me a little bit about what inspired you to create this and like what went into building this story. How did this come to be? A little bit. It's a very generic question, but
yeah, it's actually like a really hard one. I'm gonna try and streamline my answer a little bit. So we've been working on this book for like 5 years. 6? 5?
5.
Many years. 5 years.
It's like 4 and something, but it's been since 2016 officially.
Yeah, let's just call it 5. That's a long time. So yeah, like we started working on it, I think, before the world sort of got really
dark,
different.
Yeah.
So we went on to the darker timeline. And I was going through a personal tough time in my life and sort of trying to figure out what I really wanted from my future as a person in my mid-30s. Now I'm in my late 30s, almost 40s. And so this is really a book about Vonceil, the main character, trying to figure out what kind of person she wants to be as an adult and what she wants to do with her life. So I always say that this is like my middle-aged or my 30-something woman book masquerading as a middle-aged book masquerading as a middle grade book.
I like it.
But Rebecca came in super early in the process, so yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
Hope sent me, I think, the outline when she was still pitching it or like putting it together with our editor, Margaret Ferguson, who's wonderful. And we had already done Compass South and Knife's Edge together. So when she came to me with this outline, it was similar to our past projects. It was historical fiction, which had become my wheelhouse at that point, but it was also fantasy and was something I'd never dipped my toes into so much before. And so it was a little old, a little new. And the outline itself, the way Hope's describing it as this sort of middle age or like midlife turning point type of story, it hit me, I think, in the same way, because it's a very like universally appealing narrative. And so I said yes, I jumped on, and I started right away doing visual development before I started doing the art. So Hope was still writing the script, and I was basically doodling and doing my own little visual research. And from there, the artwork took off once the script was done, and yeah.
So like you just mentioned. Oh,
sorry. Just one more thing. Now that I think about it, there have just been like the actual working process for this book there have been a lot of gaps in it. Yes. So like I did the outline, like the original outline, and Rebecca came on board, and then we pitched it, and then I was doing stuff and she was doing stuff, and then it just sat for like a year.
Yeah.
And then we sort of like came back to it and started actually working on it, or I started writing the script, and then I did the script, and then it went to you. Mm-hmm. And it's just been like off and on for years. And it's actually like, I feel like spending 5 years on a graphic novel is not really ideal for a lot of reasons, but at the same time, it's given us this opportunity to put so much richness into the book that I don't think would have been there if we just like kicked it out the door in 2 years.
Definitely.
It's interesting how 5 years, long time, how that kind of plays with the theme of growing up, this book kind of growing up. And
not to spoil things, but there is a significance to the amount of time we've been in lockdown now, which is 2 years. That plays a key role in the plot.
Yeah, I know. I'm so interested in talking about the ending. I was trying to do it without delving into spoiler territory.
We accidentally sort of wrote almost a lockdown narrative as well as
Yeah.
personal narratives.
Yeah, that's crazy. Timing worked out perfect. You mentioned you two have worked together on books like Compass South and Knife's Edge.
Mhm.
How did your collaboration start? How did you guys find each other?
Twitter.
Yeah. It was a Twitter hookup.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Hope
Many
put
years
out a
ago.
call basically for an artist for a project, and it was sent to me via a friend who was like, "You would be great for this. I think you should go for it." And I emailed Hope and did a test with her for a pitch that she was putting together, and that became Compass South. And then that became Compass South and Knife's Edge, and it went from there basically. That was
Yeah, there aren't a lot of
What year was
artists
that?
who, gosh, I want to
long
say like
time
maybe
ago.
2012.
I think
if
2012,
even that.
2013 maybe.
Yeah, but I feel like there are not really a lot of artists that have your skill set, which is like you're great with environments and you're great with like feelings.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, I can draw
Yeah,
things in perspective
historical.
and I can draw big eyes. And so, everything in between.
Why historical fiction? Why are you both kind of drawn to that genre?
I mean, I do love it.
I love it too.
Because these are 3 books you've done with me, Hope, but you were written in
Mhm.
other genres as well.
Yeah, when I write for myself to draw, I usually stick to like the here and now because I'm not a virtuoso artist like Rebecca is, and I feel like I really need to be able to go out and get my reference with my phone pretty easily if I need to. So it's the books that I feel like I could not draw myself where I turn to somebody else. Which is not the only reason that I keep working with Rebecca again and again. I feel like you're my co-writer in a lot of ways, and you're definitely my co-creator. And I don't really know the characters a lot of the time until I see your drawings for them. So that's a big part of the process.
Yeah, definitely. I really enjoyed sort of building them. Like the process before I start the art, we sort of build some of the characters by going back and forth almost, which was so fun.
Yeah, I always love that. Just seeing like just the way they look, like their hairstyles and their clothes.
important.
And I'm like, oh, okay. Like I know who this person is now. And I know like it's one thing to write the dialogue just, with words. But then when you see the acting and the character actually saying the lines, sometimes it kind of changes the way you hear
Yeah.
things, which is really cool. I love that.
Yeah, comics are so amazing. It's like magic.
Well, that's my favorite thing about comics is kind of getting into the collaboration process because it's kind of one of the main mediums where, 2 people working together to build that world. And Hope, you mentioned you draw for yourself, not these books, obviously. I guess, how does your process differ when you're drawing something for yourself compared to when you're working with Rebecca?
It's honestly not really that different. Like I do full script for myself. I write what's called full script. So I basically it's a page of script to a page of comics, and I tend to break it down into panels in the script, with the caveat that that's flexible.
Right.
But yeah, so that's just, I do that for Rebecca. I do that for myself.
Yeah, Hope's scripts are tight in a way where it's just you can start drawing from them right away in a way that's different than a lot of other comics writers.
Right.
You're sort of
people
like
the Marvel
swimming.
method versus.
Yeah, it's been great. And also because Hope's an artist, she understands the visuals. And so when she breaks things down into moment to moment or beat to beat, action, she can very clearly communicate that in the script to me. And so I get the intent of each scene, which has been amazing.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like working with an artist also really pushes me to be more specific in my script. Whereas like if you're drawing for yourself, sometimes you'll just kind of like fudge it a little bit. I don't know if you do this too, Rebecca, when you're writing.
Totally.
But when you're drawing for somebody, or when you're writing for somebody else, you need to be able to really know what you're trying to convey.
Yes. Yeah. Even if you're trying to turn something into an editor, you kind of have to very clearly explain what's going on, which is a good exercise for anyone.
I'm sure there's people watching who might be wanting to write or draw a graphic novel, so that's helpful.
I'm sorry, I gotta ask a question, Rebecca. So I know you're working on your own book now.
Yes.
Or you're working on, are you scripting it, or are you doing like the thumbnail script?
I'm doing the thumbnail scripting thing. Yeah.
Oh boy.
I did start with a very like semi-script outline, but I am doing I'm just roughing it using my it's not as clean as yours, but it's just like a very like paragraphs basically.
Oh, that's cool.
Things have not been broken down.
I was so curious. Every cartoonist works so differently that it's just always really interesting to hear about the process.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference, what a thumbnail script is compared to fully scripting it out for someone who might not know the difference?
Well, in my experience, and I've just mostly talked to different people who do different things, there are some artists who will start with a very clean script, and that suits them better because you can plan everything out. You can have a very clear intent, and then you can shift over to art and you can think about the art as its own thing. And then there's a different process, or you can create a different version of the process where you have an outline first and you haven't written out all of the dialogue, you haven't specified all of the action, and you start thumbnailing from the outline. And as you go, you'll drop in the dialogue of each page as you thumbnail it. So I'm thumbnailing it like full size and placing the dialogue in. And actually, it's something that you could just like draw stick figures and like boxes for, because you really just need to get the pacing.
Yeah, a lot of people do stick figures.
Yeah. So it might even be called a layout versus an actual thumbnail.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And do you both prefer the thumbnail, or is this something that you're working on with this specific project for a certain reason?
I would say it varies project to project. I love all steps, but different projects call for different things. Like, for instance, Salt Magic had 2 sketch phases because I really wanted everything to be very precise with the art.
Well, kind of getting into that, we had mentioned off camera, we were talking about Studio Ghibli a little bit. So Salt Magic, very much, there's a hero's journey at the center of it. And it, obviously I was thinking fairy tales when I'm reading all about all these witches. Were there any specific fairy tales that inspired either the art, the story that you were thinking about? And then I had mentioned it reminded me a lot of Miyazaki movies like Spirited Away. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Not for me. I feel like maybe Rebecca does though.
Specific fairy tales?
Inspirations?
Yeah, I was curious if there was a specific one, because I don't remember if there was any.
No, not for me.
Some people have said it feels similar to the Snow Queen a little bit, with Greta sort of playing the part of Snow Queen. But that story is very different in its own way. But it does involve a heroine going to save a boy from an evil sort of witch. When I was sort of just coincidentally, I read a book about like feminist takes on fairy tales
cool.
While I was working on this. And the ones that seemed similar to me were like Bluebeard, because that's a story about a young girl who is desperate to grow up. And so she goes off to this castle with this man she meets. And within the castle were lots of secrets, all of these brides that he has murdered over time, and she has to get out. And then the Baba Yaga fairy tale is kind of similar, because Baba Yaga is sort of not evil so much as she gives this young heroine lots of tasks that seem impossible, but through her own intuition, she's able to complete each one to save herself. But I think, the theme of all those fairy tales is that they're about a young person using intuition, using their instincts, learning lessons that cause them to learn how to use those instincts to save themselves and keep themselves safe, which fairy tales plays a role. That's the role it plays to, teach children how to take care of themselves and how to grow up.
Well, that was wonderful. That was wonderfully eloquent.
I believe I'm paraphrasing a wonderful book.
That was terrific. Yeah, for me, there wasn't any specific inspiration. I certainly read a ton of that stuff as a kid, but not recently. So it's probably just like just buried
it's just
in there. And like we all grow up with those stories. So it's they're the waters that we swim in, pretty much.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Absolutely.
any reader is going to be thinking of different ones when they're reading this. Like, so when I was reading it was Spirited Away and Wizard of Oz was the time period.
As far as Spirited Away, I have this.
Yes, that's awesome.
Which is the Spirited Away art book that I bought when I was 13 when the movie came out in America, which I absolutely 100% used like as I was doing the visual development for the characters. Like I would flip through this and just stare at all of the different things, and not just this one. I have the Ponyo one because
that was another one I was thinking of when I read this.
Big Ponyo fan. I've got Kiki's, of course. Vonceil is very Kiki. And then Howl's Moving Castle, which has the witches in it. So
yes,
these books are really useful if you're an artist and you need inspiration and you want to look at like the sketches, the original sketches for a lot of the designs for these movies. They're in these books. They're a little costly, but if you can get your hands on even one, it's great inspiration.
That's really cool. It's cool. I wasn't sure if that was gonna be something that you related to at all. So it's really cool to know that you were flipping through the art books, because I definitely got the vibe and the feel and the art. I could feel it. So when you're talking about character design, for instance, obviously it's a historical fiction graphic novel. What kind of research goes into that when you're working on the story or designing the characters and going into their costumes? For both of you, what kind of research did you do when you were working on this?
I usually pull research reference when I'm writing to an extent, which I don't think I did a ton of for this book. I know we talked about Gasoline Alley.
Yes.
And how that's some of Gasoline Alley ran for years and years and years, but it started in, I think, did it start in like 1918? Something like that?
Yeah, it was almost the same year.
Yeah, so that was certainly an inspiration, and it's this time capsule of like cars and clothing and houses and stuff, and just like the stuff that people had, because it's slice of life, contemporary to its own time. So that was something that I thought about a lot and was a big fan of when I was working on this.
Yeah, and Hope also, and this is true with Compass South and Knife's Edge as well. So the references that she'll pull in the script, you arrange them, or you organize them into like a folder on Dropbox for me, and like specific to different subjects or different chapters. If there is a specific reference that you have pulled or you want me to definitely allude to, it's sort of like all organized for me along with the script. So that's where I start with a lot of the character designs and the research I do. And Gasoline Alley was definitely one of those touchstones. I went and I found a Gasoline Alley anthology at the library, and like the way I draw legs, especially like Min's legs, the sort of wide pants, I ripped pretty much directly from Gasoline Alley, because like the way that he cartoons guys in those comics, I wanted to have that exact feel. And the other stuff, like basically like costumes and things, I would troll the internet for any photos from that time period and just do drawings of each of the outfits I found until I kind of found one that felt right for the character, basically.
Yeah, I'm actually like, I just pulled up our research folder. I didn't put a ton in there. I think you did a lot more than I did.
This script was looser than Compass South and Knife's Edge, so you sort of gave me more free reign with this one. You're like, just go for it, which was a ton of fun for me, because the thing I love about historical fiction is that I get to do tons of research.
Yeah,
I have an excuse to read all these books.
One of my favorite little tidbits that you put into the book is basing the Greta, the Salt Witch, lives in this sort of palace estate. She lives on like an estate called Sear, and Rebecca based her palace-y, her grand house, on the Biltmore estate in Asheville, which is where I'm from and where I live now. And so that I think he just like did that and told me later, and it's one of those things that I super love. Every time I flip through, I'm like, ooh,
so happy. Yeah, I love that place. when I think of grand houses, because I've been there a couple times with my family, and I did go while I was doing the art for this book, and I specifically just like walked around like a crazy person, just taking a million photos. So any other fans of that house can see probably like the giant grand staircase. I had tons of reference for that.
The gardens.
The gardens. Oh
Yeah,
my
the gardens
gosh.
were incredible.
Yeah. Oh, they were fun. I love the gardens at that house. That kind of, and also French castles in general. I think you sent me a specific photo of a French castle you sort of wanted as like a starting point.
Maybe?
Yeah, I don't
knows?
remember which one.
I don't remember either.
One of the
That's what I
Loire Valley
got.
castles.
That sounds. We'll go with that.
Let's say yes. And I have no idea which one, but it was like I wanted it to feel like sort of a mismatch of different things because she's this character who's been through all these different ages.
Mm-hmm.
She probably like refurbishes different parts of her house all the time.
Based off what's in vogue.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, I got the French feel, I think, just because Vonceil talks about France, wanting to live in France. So I was like picturing the Sun King's palace. But I've been to the Biltmore, and next time I have to like bring this with me.
Please do. I've been to Versailles as well.
Yes, that's what I was
I've been
thinking.
to a lot of the Loire castles. I love castles. That's my favorite character, the castles.
Well, I loved Vonceil. How do you pronounce it? Vonceil?
I think it's Vonceil.
Vonceil.
Vonceil is, to the best of my knowledge and the research I've done, is pronounced Vonceil.
Okay.
Like Lucille, but with Vaughn.
Yeah.
With Vaughn. It's a cool name. I've never read it before.
Yeah, it's unique.
I'm sure she feels real to everyone because it's kind of a universal. She's dealing with a lot of universal things at her age. Just, wanting to get out of her little town, wanting to see a bigger world, kind of dealing with weird family stuff where she's not quite relating to them in the same way. And I just felt, I was like, wow, like back in middle school. How do you both kind of capture the voice of a younger protagonist that well? Like, do you do specific research on that age group, or do you just kind of go based on memories of how you felt at that age?
I go based on memories mostly. And I've also just been writing in that middle grade space for a long time. So I feel like I struggle more to write not as a 12-year-old or so, it was, being in middle school was not a fun time for me. So
I don't think anyone.
I don't think it's fun for anybody. So I try and like tap into that. And another inspiration for Vonceil and for her attitude is Meg Murray from Wrinkle in Time.
Oh, I forgot that.
Yeah,
your
she's like
graphic novel
the
that you've
original. Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I did the Wrinkle in
that's right.
Time graphic novel, but I love that character, and I think a lot of people do. She's sort of like the original angry, angsty teen girl for me. So I wanted to inject some of that into Vonceil.
Totally.
I can totally see that now that you've said it.
Yeah, the story has that vibe or that same sort of mythic quest as well.
Yeah.
And as far as drawing 12-year-olds in the way they act and stuff, I watched a lot of. I mean, it's specifically like the horse riding. I had a specific challenge of getting like her proportions right next to the horse that she rides around in all the book. So I watched a lot of videos of like young horseback riding competitions and rodeo competitions with young riders.
Oh,
so
cool.
Stuff like that where I would just sort of scrub through videos of people at the right age group and take screenshots because you need to because like the body movements of the similar way to how they designed Chihiro in Spirited Away. There was a lot of research into how specifically like that age group of a kid sort of moves and like their gestures and things. It's a unique challenge.
Well, and I know artists love drawing lots of horses too, so I'm sure that was
fun.
Yeah. I just know that.
It was fun though. It was so like horses aren't a thing that I would have ever said, oh, I really want to draw tons of horses one day. But the great thing about comics and graphic novels in particular is there's these huge projects. So you end up having to learn to draw things you didn't expect to have fun drawing. You can't just draw like faces and faces and faces. You have to learn how to draw all sorts of buildings and backgrounds and environments and ships and cars and in this case, horses. And so I now have that in like my tool belt.
Well, that's cool. You mentioned you both kind of work mostly or mainly what I've read of your work, middle grade, in the middle grade graphic novel realm. I guess why middle grade graphic novels?
For me, it's kind of like this sweet spot where it's not as hard as YA. Like the realness of the world has not quite hit our characters in the way that it will in a couple of years, and there's still a childishness to them and like a willingness to believe that magic is real, basically, like how in a metaphorical way. So I just really like writing for this age group. What about you?
Yeah, I think what I love about middle grade is that it's can also be considered all ages media. It's stories for everyone. It's stories that you'll appreciate when you're young and you'll come back to later and you'll see it a whole different way. Those kinds of things have always been like my favorite. Like I love kids cartoons. I've loved kids comics, and I keep going back to them. They're always this like comfort for me all the way all through my life. So it's an honor really to be able to create this kind of thing, and hopefully it can touch someone else the same way that kind of stuff touched me when I was 12 and 13.
I think you're totally right on. Like I definitely experienced this, I'm sure, in a different way than a 12-year-old is going to when they read this.
Yeah.
But I still really loved it. So I'm sure people will keep coming back to Salt Magic. I guess I'm trying not to spoil it, but I really liked the ending because for all the fairy tale aspects of the book, and I won't spoil it, but I feel like there wasn't necessarily a fairy tale happy ending there. It was a little bit more muted, kind of maybe more realistic to life. Do you agree with that assessment? And is that a conscious choice you made? Did it just, as you were going, that kind of felt right for the character, or did you kind of go in planning not necessarily going to have a happy ending?
I mean, to me, it is a happy ending.
Okay. Yeah.
But actually, like we did an event last night, and we were talking about it a little bit, like to the extent that you can talk about the ending without talking about the ending. And I was like, I'm so curious to hear people's thoughts on this ending because I feel like it could be really divisive. For like we talked about it, me, Rebecca, and Margaret, our editor, went back and forth on the ending so many times, like in the script phase, in the art phase. Like, does it work? Are people going to understand what's going on? What is going on? Like, it's a little bit open to interpretation, but not too open. And it's definitely unorthodox for a middle grade book. I love it. I don't know what you want to add, Rebecca, but it's probably my favorite part of the book.
Yeah, hard agree. There's so much about different parts of the ending that I love. There's like a moment between Vonceil and her mom where they're like talking in the kitchen that just I think about all the time, because how true is that? How real is that conversation? And I remember in the process of drawing the end, I think at the sketch phase, I asked if we could expand the last page into 2 pages because I just really wanted to like give it breath, because it's a silent ending, but I wanted that moment to feel, have a beat, have weight. And I remember Margaret maybe suggested that it be a little bit more specific. And then we ended up going with something a little bit less specific in the end, which I love because it is open to interpretation. Hopefully different people will have different reactions.
Yeah, I think all the information you need to interpret it is there, but you have to, if you're like flipping through the book, if you're reading it at like 60 miles an hour, you will miss probably some key things in there.
Yeah, there's Easter eggs.
Yeah, a lot happens in those last few pages. I went through it a couple times before we started talking. Well, one of the things about the ending, and again, not spoiling, but and I guess this is about the whole book. I feel like Rada and Jesse, their ending is very different than Vonceil's.
Mhm.
And I wanted to know, was that like an intentional kind of dichotomy that you were trying to show how people deal with responsibility differently? That's how I kind of took it. I found that they were kind of polar opposites by the end of the story. And I wasn't sure if that was intentional.
I'm trying to think how much I can answer this
I
without
know, I'm sorry.
spoiling.
These are things I wanted to ask.
I think I mostly agree, but not completely.
Okay.
I agree with caveats. I think I've been thinking a lot about Greta and the archetype that she is, which is like the fun single lady, never settled down. Is she kind of pathetic, or is she really just living her best life?
Right?
I mean, I feel like you can interpret her in a lot of ways based on how you see the world. I think she's very flawed, but I don't think she's unsympathetic. I feel like the path that she chooses is a completely valid one. And the path that Vonceil chooses in life is both similar and really different to hers, to Greta's. Is that?
No, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Do you have
that's
anything
good.
to add, Rebecca?
No, I mean that kind of covers it. It is a really interesting relationship that Vonceil has to Greta. And I think that it's interesting to think about, definitely, the two paths that they choose at the end and how they are similar and different. I mean, I think that'd be a great study question for someone, because you could write an essay about it.
Oh, yeah. And it was just interesting to see, because Greta, in the beginning, she's kind of Vonceil's dream life. And I think a lot of kids reading this initially are like, that is the dream life, living in a palace, kind of just traveling the world, living forever.
Absolute
I don't want to
freedom.
too much, but yes, absolute freedom. So yeah, I really like that about the end. Kind of seeing how their paths diverge and how Vonceil's maybe dream life changes by the end of her adventure. I guess I really want to talk about just how much I loved. I mean, Vonceil's journey goes throughout different lands, very different lands. And if you could just talk a little bit about designing these worlds, because I just loved every minute of it. I love the Sugar Witch's land. We talked a little bit about Greatest
Her
Palace,
house.
Oh, I loved her
is so
house
good.
too.
The dolls. Oh my god. All of the backgrounds. Yeah, Hope, what was your how did the visuals turn out as far as your imagination for the worlds?
Oh,
to?
so much better and so much more nuanced than anything I could have imagined. One of my favorite parts, and I'm flipping through trying to find it, is this amazing party scene at Sear where it looks
the
like
pink scene.
It looks like the club.
Yes.
Like a disco or something. And I absolutely love that. It feels very, your coloring and the lighting and everything brings this really cool modern spin to everything.
Thank you very much. I think that the way that scene and others like it are colored are very largely influenced by Carrasco comics, which, if you remember, Please Don't Touch Me was a big style inspiration for Compass South. And Beautiful Darkness and other works by them. I look at a lot for color inspiration. And they also have party scenes in their comics that are just these like wild, monotone, just like trippy. I really wanted to capture that feeling here too. There's that like unbalanced feeling. Just like everybody's too close and it's suffocating, but it's also beautiful and overwhelming. Though there are 3 party scenes in this book. I don't know if Hope did that intentionally, but it's a beautiful 1, 2, 3.
It's not. I don't think it was intentional.
Or as much as you were writing a good story, and so you did the rule of 3, and each party is its own, hopefully visually, moment.
The wedding.
Yes, there's the wedding first.
Party 2, the club party.
The club
scene, which is the one I just showed, and then there's the
fete.
The fete.
Fate? We need to get a French person.
Fete would be the French.
Yes,
that one is more it's brighter.
Yes.
Um,
It's definitely more colorful. I try the difference really from the first Sarah party scene is that every like costume is a little bit more modernized. So you see a lot more 20s inspired costumes in everybody.
here's that one. If you can
That one's got like a blue
see
and
it a
yellow
little
tints
bit.
to everything.
Yeah.
That one also was another moment where I asked Margaret and Hope, can I expand this to 2 pages, please?
Yeah. I feel like there were just a lot of moments where I was really trying to get as much as possible out of as few pages as possible because if at least the way it works for me is if I want more pages, I need to go and ask for them and like make a case for them.
Yeah.
I can't just turn in a 500-page book. I've done that and I have to cut it down then.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that we were able to get those extra pages to really make it shine because we needed them. Like the art needed them for sure.
Yeah, they were like silent scenes where I could say like this could actually be expanded. But you're right. And I think the running theme in the books that we do together is it's just tons of different scenes. Like every few pages you're changing scene, and it keeps the pacing really good, and it like makes it very exciting. And like our heroes go on all these adventures, but it does mean that I get to design like 20 or 30 different sets basically. Which is fun.
Get to.
Yeah, I get to. I love designing the sets. I don't love crowd scenes as much. Like I
Yes,
wish
I'm
someone
sorry.
else could put the people in.
Yeah.
There were a lot of crowd scenes too.
I'm proud of them though. I'm proud of how they came out.
I mean,
They're
I love the
amazing.
character designs. Again, not trying to spoil anything, but the character designs of the people in those parties were really fun.
That
Oh,
last
I don't
so
think
much
that's
fun.
a spoiler. I don't
Yeah.
think it's a spoiler. There are some animal people in this book and they are
Yeah,
amazing.
they're so
I
cool.
love them.
Some of my favorites. And there's some dresses in the last scene that I love so much and wish existed in real life that are not maybe period appropriate, but I drew them anyway because it's just having fun.
Well, we need to get some cosplayers to make the
Oh,
dresses.
Please.
My girlfriend's
Yeah.
learning to sew, so I will point her in that direction, trying to
good luck.
surreptitiously. I thank you so much for talking about the color, because that was something I also wanted to cover, because a lot of middle grade books I've read recently, at least, have that kind of like limited color palette where they have a couple like thematic colors that they use, and so I think they work for those books. But I was really happy about like just the really cool color play in this book.
Yeah, I think that's actually like this was going to be a limited palette book initially.
That was one of our ideas.
Budget reasons, I think, and time reasons, and we went back and made the case for full color, and thank goodness, because the color is it's one of my favorite parts of the book for sure.
Me too.
It's
Sorry.
So good.
Especially in differentiating, the different colors, especially when she's at home and then when she goes to all these different places. I loved that. The way of differentiating the different landscapes and the different parts of the journey.
Like a Wizard of Oz film type of situation.
Yes.
Yeah, I talked about that exact thing in some bookseller event that I was there for alone. And I have my notes from that in front of me. But yeah, I talked a lot about how it's like we're going from this sort of like more muted color palette in the real world, and then we go into Seer and things shift, and as the emotion amps up, the colors amp up, and I really like that.
Yeah, I tried to match like very high action scenes even in the beginning. So like if there's a high action point, the color will drop to one color. Everything might just go yellow, or Vonceil's face will go blue, and that's sort of hopefully meant to help convey some of the emotion of what's being said or what's going on in the scene, and create like some atmosphere. And that kind of stuff I love seeing in other comics, and it always like, oh, I really want to try that. So I feel like Salt Magic was everything I wanted to try all at once.
Well, I don't want to ask all the questions. I think Jen here is asking, how would you each describe Salt Magic in 5 words or less?
Oh gosh.
So if we can condense our whole conversation
that is
into
not
5
many words.
Oh no. Oh, I mean, I should have studied for this. It's a quest. It's how do you do coming of age, but one word?
You add a lot of hyphens.
It's a quest for one's
Identity.
own story. There we
Mm.
go. Yes. A quest for identity. And love.
That's an awesome
A
tagline.
quest for identity and love.
I want to go. I don't know. This is a tough one. I don't think I can do it on the spot.
I
I'm
like
over here counting on my fingers.
It's like writing a haiku.
Yeah.
Yeah. Identity
No,
is
I
good
mean,
though.
I think that nailed it. A quest for identity and love.
Yeah.
I guess the one thing I didn't really talk about, which I think is one of the major themes aside from finding identity, Vonceil growing up, is just how family played into it, because the whole quest is started out because Vonceil is trying to help her family. Can you talk a little? Oh, well, I'll ask my question and then Michelle will get to you. Sorry, that's the perk of me being hosting. But yeah, if you can talk a little bit about, I don't know, what went into building that kind of family relationship between Vonceil and her brother, and you kind of talked a little bit about at the end about how she kind of has a different relationship with her mom. I don't know. It's a loaded big question, but if you can kind of talk about that. And if not, we can go to Michelle. It's a lot of words.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And do you want to start, Rebecca? Or do you have thoughts off the tip of your head?
Off the tip of
Still
my
thinking.
head, I think that you're right. It's a story about family. For me, one of the major themes is listening to the past generation, because a big part of Vonceil's quest is figuring out this story of her family, of her ancestors, of her like uncle and the generation before her, what happened to them. And also the witches, Dee and Greta, are these like mythic, immortal people that Vonceil has to sort of learn about and connect with. So she's grown up. She's the youngest person in her whole family. A lot of her character development is sort of forming connections with like someone older than her and like learning to connect with them or understand them better.
I guess there's kind of like a dichotomy at play where Greta and Dee are both searching for family, and Vonceil is trying to save and reconnect with her family. And I think in a lot of ways it's her journey to find her place in her own family.
Yeah, I'd agree
and if
with
you
that.
think about the ending, that's she finds her place in her family in her own way.
Yeah. And it's not the same as like finding a happy ending in a usual fairy tale, but she really does find herself and in relation to these people she cares about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw we had another question too. Should
Yes.
I just go for it?
Yeah,
Do you ever get
Michelle wanted to
writer
know-
artist block?
Yeah.
And how do you get past it? I think I get like artist block a lot, and I've done like overwork and burnt out, and I don't really draw for fun usually anymore, and I haven't in a long time. I don't really get writer's block that I can think of. I feel like I can just go and go and go for writing. But I do like to work on a lot of different things at the same time, so I don't get bored. And maybe that's part of why I don't get blocked, is because I'm always shifting gears. Like if I sort of hit a wall with one thing, I just like move over to something that is different and keep going on that one and then jump back and forth.
Yeah, that's good advice. Definitely jumping or like changing channels, basically.
Mhm.
Because if you stick to one project for a long, long time, you do get burnt out. I think it definitely happened with this project a couple times where I just got burned out on the art because I was working on it on and off for so long.
Yeah.
And taking a break definitely helped. So I would ask for taking a break. I would jump to doing freelance. Or I would do other work, and always came back stronger. So that was great. I also do get writer's block. I'm not as much of an experienced writer, so I'm still working on my process for getting through that. But mostly I bang my head on my wall and just sort of like shake any friend who will listen to me and try to like explain the story verbally until it makes sense.
No, I do that too.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm not saying I never get stuck. I get stuck all the time, but I don't think that's the same as writer's block. I don't know what writer's block is.
There's two different types. There's definitely the times when you have literally thought about a project for so long that there's no more brain space. You have to walk away. You have to just let it go, and go back and find yourself, and then you can come back to it later.
Well, do you have Rebecca, you mentioned you're working on something. Do you have any other upcoming projects after Salt Magic? Which seems silly because we're celebrating Salt Magic. Just came out this week. It seems crazy
mostly
to say, all right, what's
I want
next?
people to celebrate Salt Magic. I think I'm not sure if anything that you're going to not see much from me for a little while because I'm starting a new book. It's going to be a couple of years, so we're waiting to start talking about that. I worked as a background artist for this summer on a show called Close Enough, which is an adult comedy cartoon show. So if you watch that kind of thing, I did background art for that. That comes out next year sometime. And then, I'll just be continuing to do my own little personal projects on and off.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Help?
I have my third book in the Eagle Rock trilogy, which started with All Summer Long, and then all together now. The third one, All My Friends, is coming out in, I think, like January. It was actually supposed to be coming out this month, and it fell to the shipping issues.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
boy.
yeah,
I know those.
supply chain.
That game.
It got bumped, and thank goodness it did. I'm sorry, All My Friends, but I do not want to promote two books at the same time.
Yeah.
Especially when they're so different. It's like, ugh. Anyway, so that's the next thing for me. It's been done for a while. And aside from that, I've just been doing a lot of behind the scenes-y stuff in animation as well. And kind of waiting to see if some things will go or not. They're at that point where we're waiting for a yay or nay from a network, and you never know.
How
Anything
exciting,
can happen. It is exciting. But also I just sort of like check out a little bit.
Yeah.
I emotionally detached because I have no control over that situation. But yeah, I'm just so thrilled that Salt Magic is finally out. We've been working on it for so long. I'm so proud of it.
Yeah. And we were waiting on it to come out for a little while after we finished it. So and
was there
October is perfect.
COVID, or
there was some COVID related
there were just a lot of things out of our control that ended up making it take a long time to come out.
Yeah.
We also moved publishers, so because our editor moved, so that was like a big part of it.
Wow. Yeah.
Moving the book. Somebody asked if there's hardcover. There is a hardcover edition.
There is.
I have it here.
And the book plates are already signed. There's a lot of moving parts in getting book plates sent from publisher to Rebecca to Hope to me. So I can write to Charlotte on it for you, Jeremy. That's okay. But thank you both so much. Is there anything else you want to talk about with Salt Magic that I didn't get to? We kind of went loose on the plot, and I went on a lot about like the process.
No, that's okay. I want the plot to be a surprise for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can give my little elevator pitch, which is Little House on the Prairie meets Spirited Away with a little bit of Wizard of Oz. And it's the story of 12-year-old Vonceil who leaves home to break the curse on her family's farm and has to confront two different witches to do it. So there you go. That's what the book's about.
With that. I'm sorry.
Boom. No, it's okay.
It's great.
This was really awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time. We're in North Carolina, so I was like, oh, I wish COVID things weren't happening right now because it would have been awesome to have you at the stores. But
it would have been great. My mom's in North Carolina. Could have come down.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Next time.
Next time.
Well, next time, and we can all take a field trip to the Biltmore. Oh, we actually have one last question in here. we kind of talked
Can you
about it a
tell?
little bit in the beginning, but fairy tale stories, lore were most inspiring to you while writing this in general? Probably joined in a little bit late.
I think the consensus was we've all read a lot of fairy tales in our time. There was no
Yeah.
specific inspiration, just general.
Yeah, definitely. The archetypes from many fairy tales can probably be recognized in this book.
Well, I think in your little elevator pitch was a good kind of tasting plate of some kind of
Yeah,
modern-day
Wizard of
fairy
Oz
tales.
vibes for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which itself is
The
a
screen will be
sort of
available on YouTube for
It's
mismatch.
its own fairy tale. Yeah.
It is.
Well, thank you so much. If anyone wants to order this, I will drop a link afterwards where it will also be available to just order through our website. And if you just commented, we'll get you a signed copy once we get the book plates, and those will ship to you. And we're gonna have this on our YouTube channel, so if you missed the beginning, you can watch it back, and or maybe you want to watch it after you read the book. I think it'd be great to come back to this and kind of see what
Get
we were trying to
context.
talk about without giving too much away. But yeah, thank you both so much for taking the time and talking about the book with us.
Thank you so much. This is really fun.
Yeah, this was
Yeah.
a great time.
This was super fun. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
right.
Thanks everybody for
Have a
watching.
great